news. Glad you could be with me to have a conversation about something that is concerning me at this particular time. So what has happened is that I've often talked about politics and been very angry, I guess, about the way politicians behave, the way we respond to politics. And I find myself getting agitated, more and more agitated over time about what's happened in my world as a therapist and a social worker, and working particularly in the area of child protection. I become immersed in the, I was going to say crap, but it's not crap. It's the world of other people where there's a lot of dysfunction, where there are systems that do not work for individuals, where people become entrenched in negativity. And I find that from time to time, I become entrenched in that same sense of negativity, and that it's important to be able to find a way to look beyond that, to find something else in the world that we can celebrate, that we can think about in a more positive way. So the question for me was really, what happens in this world that we can think about a little differently, that helps us to better understand that there are decent people in this world. I was having a conversation with my wife yesterday, and not unusual, we do it every morning, but in that conversation, we both reflected on the fact that there are so many good people in this world, and we tend to focus a lot on the negativity, the negative nature of people, whether that be through Twitter or Facebook. There's not much positivity, it seems, happening. So recently I subscribed to the Christian Science Monitor. Now, a lot of people will think, well, that's a religious paper. Well, that's not true. It's not. It's actually based on a religious ideology, I guess, but it is great reporting, absolutely fabulous reporting. And most of the reporting that you get in this paper tends to have a positive twist to it, or it looks at things in a more positive, constructive way than does the mainstream media. I wouldn't consider it mainstream in the normal sense of the word, like the New York Times or the Post or whatever, or in Australia, the Australian or the Advertiser in particular, Sydney Morning Herald, whatever it might be. It doesn't sit within that same framework, if you like, according to me anyway. But I came upon this article that I wanted to share with you. I'm going to read some of it to you. And so this article was written about a man by the name of Curtis Toler, who is an African-American bloke in Chicago. Now, Chicago, according to this report, up to September last year, and that year, had 2,652 shootings. Of those 2,652 shootings, there were 457 deaths. And this is a problem. Clearly, it's a problem. We don't have that many shootings and deaths in a decade here in Australia. But and it's not really about anymore, I think, whether it be the US or wherever it might be. This story is about someone who's come to recognise what the problem is, and then to try and find solutions for that problem. And it doesn't matter whether you're in the US, Australia, New Zealand, Asia, Europe, wherever you might be. The answer and the solution is kind of the same, even though he's confronted with addressing a severe problem in the US. I'm just going to read you, so bear with me, I'm just going to read you some of this article, and then we'll get to the end of it and we'll talk to you a little bit about how this article has actually impacted me. Now, in one of his most final cities, Curtis Toler is helping young people see the power of choosing, better change that, bear with me, of choosing, whoops, wrong one. So I'll just highlight this stuff for you, of choosing peace. So he's finding a way to be able to make a difference within his community, the community in which he grew up, and which he wished to change. Now, just a bit of a backstory about Curtis is that, and so I won't read all this to you when I get to it, but he had a single mum who eventually had a partner, which became obviously his stepdad. He was brutalised by his stepdad, as I understand it, and his stepdad eventually killed his mother. Now, what this did to him, which one can understand, is it bred a sense of anger, a sense of enragement, which he believed the gangs in his community could help him to express, if you like. So he chose to join a gang. He was, and he did go to jail for some of the crimes that he committed. But at one particular point, he chose that really wasn't the path he wanted to go. And he does this example where he's showing the writer of the story his phone, and on his phone it says, "This is throughout the city. Person shot, person shot, person shot, person shot, deceased." This is a daily event that happens, and he is a part of that. He oversees young men and women who have relationships with the gangs that Chicago Cred, which is the name of his organisation, is trying to wean from violence. I think that's important. His ambitious goal to reduce gun violence by 20% each year. They endeavour to identify not only who's most at risk of getting shot, but also who is most likely to pull the trigger. And that is the key to what he's intended to do. He was once the leader of Chicago's most feared gang, street gangs. Now he risks his own life to persuade others to come over to the side of peace. And I think that's an incredible message, is to encourage young people who are just full of the rage that he felt as a kid, and then to seek a peaceful way by which they can conduct their lives. This is part of the atonement, if you will, for the past. This is what he's saying about his own experience. This is part of the atonement for his behaviour in the past. And this is what Reverend Felger, who's founder of Chicago's Baseball Peace League, says. To be able to identify with them and to care about them, you can't come in with a dictating-like way or a condemning way or a judgment way. You just have to come in meeting them where they are at and help to move them to another place of peace. And while he's having this interview, he's also recognising that a message came through telling him that there was going to be a shooting in a graduation ceremony at high school, and so they were going to shoot a young person who was about to graduate. One gang was, and his gang, the Cred gang, were there to try and prevent that from happening. However, while they were there attempting to prevent that from happening, a shooting took place elsewhere at another school. So they were able to stop that one at that particular school, but sadly another one took place. The people that are part of his organisation do receive some income from being a leader within his organisation. So I just want to read this bit to you. So the first time Mr. Tyler got shot, he was 12 years old. He's been shot on 4 other occasions. Asked what it's like when he was shot, he said, "Other than it hurts," he erupts in a belly deep laugh that rolls off several seconds. "That's how I think, that I'm able to relate to some of the young men and women who go through it." So he's had that terrible experience of whatever his stepfather did, the loss of his mum, all those other issues, and also what it's like to be shot. He also knows firsthand the reasons why so many young youths join gangs. Now, then he talks about him being an elder sibling of a single mother and his mother being shot. He says here, once you feel love, then you have the ability to love others. Once being a father and a husband took the place of and felt a lot better than being a gang leader, it was an easy transition, right? You know, because you have to replace something with something else, which is the love and the dedication to your family, I guess. The tattoos on his arms say honour and respect. And that he describes the personality that he had as a gang leader, which I think is important. He described it as an imposter, not his true self. That's helped him develop a technique for dealing with formidable gang members on the streets. He imagines what they might have been like when they were 5 years old, the age of his own grandson. And he's imagining what it was like, I think, for them to also have the experiences that he had losing his mum in the way that he did and the anger that he had inside of him. And he goes on to say, and I think this is vital that we understand this, if we could see the child in everyone, that it becomes a lot easier to work with them. Because I'm not seeing this hard guy with tattoos all over his face, even though I'm working with a non-judgmental zone. But I'm seeing the young, fragile human being. Whatever circumstances or conditions cause them to be the way that they are now, they weren't always like that. I think that's important for all of us to understand. And if they weren't always like that, then there's a great possibility of them changing. In other words, we could find ways to connect with who these people really are at a deeper level. We've got to get wins where we can take them, Mr. Charles Fiddy tells his associates. And then he hears this message about the fact that there was another shooting. Gun violence in Chicago, while still very high, is down in 2022. In mid-June, Chicago celebrated a peace treaty between two deadly gangs. I really believe we're going in the right direction. I'm also a praying man, right? So yeah, he's a Muslim, I believe. I just really stay hopeful, because if we don't have any hope, then what's the use of doing the work? And I think that this is an important message for all of us. And it's a positive message, that if we look for the hurt that sits within the individuals that we would often be judgmental about, I guess, whether they come from gangs or whether we have some sort of racial beliefs about who people are, and we're judgmental of them, we're not going to achieve any change at all. But if we start to understand who the child is and not see it in terms of race or dysfunction, then there's a good chance of finding out who that person really is. Because, and this has certainly been my view for many years, is that the child lives within us. The child is who we are. We often need to just find it again after it has been lost for some time. So I found this an interesting and positive story amongst all the negative and hurtful and resentful stuff that we find ourselves watching, or I find myself watching a lot on either YouTube, Facebook or Twitter. So I'm hoping that from this, I want to report and I want to talk more about the positive things that happen to people, not all the negative. And to be able to turn around people's lives as this gentleman's done is amazing. And I believe there are lots of people out there doing similar sort of work, trying their best to make a difference after they themselves have experienced some horrific events in their own lives. So I don't know what you think about that. If you've got any stories that you'd like to tell me about your experiences and how you know of people that have changed this world for the better, then please let me know. Place a comment below. And as I've often said, please contact me through through Tony at tonytonkin.com.au, incidentally. And I also ask if you would mind subscribing to my YouTube channel so I can get my subscriptions up. That would be nice. And I hope that every one of you can find a way to have some peace in your life. Thanks, everybody. Take care. Look after yourselves and be safe.